Welcome back. I'm counting down my top 10 favorite haunted places I've visited or investigated over the years. If you missed my last video, part 1, I counted down number 10 to number 6. I'll put a link above to that video. In this video, we pick up at number 5, Villisca Axe Murder House. On the night of June 10, 1912, in a quiet Iowa town, 8 people, Josiah and Sarah Moore, their 4 children, and 2 young visiting guests were found brutally murdered in their beds with an axe. It is believed the killer either was waiting in the attic for the family to return home, or the killer slipped into the small white house sometime after midnight, bludgeoned everyone inside, and vanished without a trace. Despite multiple theories, suspects, and trials, no one was ever convicted, leaving the case officially unsolved. It is believed Josiah was attacked and killed first, then his wife Sarah was murdered. The killer continued down the short upstairs hallway to where all the Moore children were sleeping, killing all 4 children, whose ages ranged from 5 to 11 years old. Then the murderer made his way downstairs and killed Ina and Lena. When I was there, I had set up a motion-activated camera in the downstairs bedroom occupied by Ina and Lena. 2 fellow investigators were setting up their equipment that triggered my camera. It appears to have captured a residual voice, Ina, trying to get Lena's attention the night of the murder. You can hear a very faint young girl yell, "Lena!" and what sounds like faint screams start. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Any work? Did it match anything?
No.
Where was that at?
One theory of the murderer, someone involved with business of Mr. Moore. At the time of the killings, Josiah Moore was one of the town's most prominent businessmen who had secured a franchise to the booming John Deere Company. It is said his former boss, Frank F. Jones, was angry when Josiah left his company, taking the John Deere contract with him. Another rumor was a transient serial killer riding the train line, hopping on and off, murdering people, as there were other similar axe cases in surrounding states around the same time. A schizophrenic traveling minister named George Kelly is said to have confessed to the murders because the devil made him do it, but 2 separate juries thought Kelly had been coerced by police, so Kelly was never convicted. To me, this theory does make sense. They were just at a church event or church program. The preacher could have followed them home and then committed this heinous act. Who do you think did the Villisca Axe murders? Let me know in the comments. Over the years, the Villisca Axe Murder House has gained a dark reputation. Visitors and paranormal investigators report footsteps and children's laughter in empty rooms, mysterious shadows and cold spots, flashlights and doorknobs turning on their own, EVPs, which are electronic voice phenomena, believed to capture voices of the victims. A fellow investigator had me look at something in his video, and I said, "Well, what about the little boy standing there?" He said, "What little boy?" I sent him a couple screenshots to what appears to be a young boy that looks like Boyd Moore, who was 7 at the time of his death. In one picture, it appears another child is looking on behind Boyd. The 2 childlike images dissipated and disappeared into what looked like balls of energy. The same investigator had been in the home by himself, had ghost children rolling the ball back and forth in the living room. Odd, unusual, and wicked cool at the same time. Let me know if you think it looks like Boyd. Another odd thing that happened while I was there, I had set up a camera in the kitchen with a view looking out covering the kitchen and living room area. When I came back a short time later to check the camera had been turned around facing the wall as if someone did not want to be captured on camera. I'm no tech, but I know I didn't set up my camera to face the wall. Today, the house is frozen in time, looking much like it did in 1912. You can take day tours or even book overnight stays if you dare, to experience the eerie energy that still lingers there. There are different owners of the house now than when I went. I think you can still rent the entire home to investigate, or you can rent partial places in the home like one of the bedrooms, which is odd to me. If you go to the trouble of visiting and investigating, you really need to have access to the entire home, in my opinion. I'll put their contact info in the description box if you would like to make a reservation. If you ever do go to Villisca, make sure you stop by the cemetery to pay your respects to the Moores and the Stillingers. The Villisca Axe murder crime remains one of America's most chilling unsolved mysteries. I'm curious. Let me know if you've ever been to the Axe Murder House or if you would go if you had the opportunity. Landing at number 4 takes us to the capital of Missouri. In Jefferson City, you'll find the Missouri State Penitentiary. Once known as the bloodiest 47 acres in America, the Missouri State Penitentiary opened in 1836 and finally closed the cells for the final time in 2004. For nearly 170 years, it housed some of the most dangerous criminals in the country. The Great Prison Riot of 1954 at the Missouri State Penitentiary, known as MSP, was one of the most violent and destructive prison uprisings in American history. The riot began on the evening of September 22, 1954. Two inmates overpowered guards in the prison's clock repair shop and set fires. Within minutes, chaos spread throughout multiple cell blocks. Prisoners broke into offices, destroyed property, and attacked guards and other inmates. The flames quickly engulfed several buildings, and the sky over Jefferson City glowed orange from the fires. The situation got so bad, the Missouri National Guard and State Highway Patrol were called in. They surrounded the prison, and after an all-night standoff, they stormed the facility early the next morning with tear gas and rifles. By dawn on September 23rd, order had been restored. 4 inmates were killed and around 50 people were injured, including guards. Several buildings were completely destroyed or heavily damaged. The damage was estimated to be as high as $5 million. The riot exposed deep issues in Missouri's prison system, leading to major reforms in prison management and living conditions. I participated in a daytime tour to take pictures and get familiar with the layout of the buildings. I returned with friends the next night for our private overnight paranormal investigation. On your prison tour, you can visit former cells of 2 of the most infamous inmates that ever served time here. In 1950, Charles Sonny Liston arrived at the Missouri State Penitentiary, convicted for 2 charges of robbery with a deadly weapon and 2 charges of larceny. While incarcerated, Sonny learned how to box. Sonny Liston was released on parole in 1952, and almost immediately, Liston was entered into the Golden Gloves amateur boxing tournament, held in St. Louis, where he won and went on to win the National Heavyweight Championship. His reign was short-lived. He famously lost to Muhammad Ali in 1964 in one of boxing's biggest upsets. Another cell you can visit is James Earl Ray. In 1959, Ray and his accomplice held up a Kroger store in St. Louis, and after being caught, tried, and convicted, Ray was sentenced to 20 years at the Missouri State Penitentiary. After several escape attempts, Ray made one final escape plan in 1967. He reported to his bakery job in the prison and was helped into a large box that was used to ship loaves of bread. A truck drove to pick up a supply in several boxes, including the one containing Ray. They were loaded up into the truck, and the truck left the penitentiary. Nearly a year later, on Thursday, April 4, 1968, Ray assassinated Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, Tennessee. If he had remained behind bars or been recaptured, maybe Martin Luther King Jr. would not have been murdered. Behind its massive stone walls were riots, escapes, and countless violent incidents, earning it a chilling reputation for brutality. Today, the prison mostly stands silent, but many believe the echoes of the dark past remain. Visitors have reported unexplained voices, cold spots, and shadowy figures lurking in the old cell blocks. One of the most fascinating places in the prison is the gas chamber. 40 inmates were put to death in the gas chamber between 1937 and 1989. 39 men and 1 woman, Bonnie Heady. Bonnie Heady and Carl Austin Hall were convicted of the kidnapping and murder of Bobby Greenlease. Heady and Hall demanded $600,000 in ransom, at the time the largest ransom in the history of the nation, which was paid. Unknown to the family, Heady and Hall had already killed and buried Bobby soon after the abduction that took place on September 28, 1953. Bobby was a 6-year-old boy who was the son of Robert Greenlease Sr., a wealthy automobile dealer in Kansas City, Missouri. Heady and Hall died sitting side by side in the gas chamber on December 18, 1953. Back then, there was no 40-year appeal process. They were arrested, tried, convicted, sentenced, and executed in less than 3 months from the crime. When you visit, make sure to venture out to the former warden's house to see exhibits and items from the prison history in their prison museum. I was in the building where they kept the death row inmates during our investigation. I asked Bonnie why she did it. We got a very eerie one-word response on one of the pieces of her equipment. All it said was love. She kidnapped and helped murder an innocent boy for money out of love. This response made me sick to my stomach. I hope that kind of love never finds me. Also, while I was in this building, I had another unforgettable experience. I was looking down the long row of cells, and suddenly I looked to my left, and there was a man standing in one of the cells. If you've ever watched the 80s sitcom Cheers, Carla's ex-husband Nick Tortelli, played by actor Dan Heda, is what the man looked like. It was a little unnerving to say the least. However, this place did not disappoint. I would love to go back and visit Missouri State Penitentiary. Tell me in the comments if you've ever been on a prison tour, or would you enjoy taking this tour? I'm curious. MSP is truly a place where history and haunted activity collide. One step inside might make you feel like the inmates never really left. Can you believe we are already at number 3 on the list of my top 10 favorite haunted places? Would you stay the night in an old abandoned haunted hospital? No? Well, I did. I actually spent 3 nights with friends 10 years ago here. I can't believe it's already been 10 years ago. Time flies when there's lots of haunted places to visit. Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. The hospital originally opened in 1959 as the South Pittsburgh Municipal Hospital, founded by 4 medical professionals to serve the growing community. Decades later, a more modern facility opened, causing Old South to cease being a functioning hospital in 1998. The site has become a well-known haunted location with many paranormal events, ghost hunting tours, and overnight investigations held there. Reported paranormal phenomena include objects moving, such as wheelchairs and medical carts moving on their own, shadow figures, and full-body apparitions, including a purported 7-foot-tall figure allegedly seen on the 3rd floor. A naughty nurse spirit in the basement said to touch visitors and whisper to them. A playful child spirit known as Buddy on the 3rd floor. Some of my most memorable experiences here were walking around on the lower level when it sounded like someone was moving heavy furniture on the floor above us. You know that sound of heavy furniture scraping or being dragged on the floor? It was crazy. At one point, we heard the elevator ding. The elevator had not been in use for years. On one of the mornings, we were just getting around when there was a loud boom on one of the walls in the rooms where none of our investigators were staying. The strangest thing that happened to me while I was on site was the very last morning. When I first arrived 3 days earlier, I had been told to always carry a flashlight or my phone because the spirits like to turn the lights off and on while you were in the restroom. We were all packing up, getting ready to leave. This was in a very small bathroom. Think of a small old hospital room with a little separate room with a toilet and sink only. I went to the restroom for the last time before hitting the road, and I had just sat down and the light went off, and I felt something wet drip on my right hand. I thought, what the hell is that? I hope that is water. I flipped the light back on, and a red liquid was on my hand. It was blood from my nose. I'm not prone to nosebleeds, and this was the first nosebleed I'd had in my life. I'm not saying it was paranormal, but the timing was extremely odd, and I've not had a nosebleed since. Also, if it was something that I was breathing or I was allergic to in the location, I think I would have had issues before the last morning I was there. Tell me in the comments what you think. I guess I will never know, but it was very unexpected and an interesting experience while I was at Old South. This yellow ball started off far into the hallway, and then it kept getting closer to my room until one morning it was in my room. Nothing too scary, but I do wonder if it was Buddy trying to get my attention or wanting to play. Speaking of my room, this is the room I stayed in for 3 nights. As I laid there in a former hospital room, I couldn't help but wonder how many people probably passed away in this room. Not creepy at all. Okay, it was mildly creepy. I like there was a lot of the original hospital equipment still on site, and I can imagine all the lives this hospital helped during its 40 years of healthcare. And now people flock here for the chance of encountering something of the unknown from the other side. Have you visited, or would you visit or stay in such a place? The combination of hospital history and haunted lore, accessible investigative tours, make this a unique location for paranormal enthusiasts. I'll put their contact info in the description box if you want to find out about upcoming events or if you want to book your own stay at Old South. Now on to number 2. This location is a familiar sight in the skyline of Birmingham, Alabama. Sloss Furnaces started as the blast furnace operation founded by James Withers Sloss in 1881. The site produced pig iron from local raw materials, iron ore, coal, limestone, which helped fuel the industrial growth of Birmingham. The location still includes the old blast furnaces and supporting industrial structures. You can take a free of charge self-guided tour and see the scale of the industrial equipment. It's an amazing place to photograph. It's one of the few preserved blast furnace sites of its kind in the U.S. and gives a tangible sense of how heavy industry shaped a city. The history of the workers at Sloss Furnaces is one of the most fascinating and often haunting parts of Birmingham's industrial past. It reveals how the city's rapid growth came at a tremendous human cost, especially for African American laborers in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The work was dangerous, exhausting, and extremely hot, with men laboring around molten iron that reached over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Workers shoveled coal and iron ore, tended furnaces, and handled slag, often with minimal safety equipment. Most earned very low wages, and injuries or deaths were common, and many of their spirits never left. The operation continued in various forms until it closed around 1970 to 1971. In 1981, it was designated a National Historic Landmark and later opened as a museum and interpretive site. It often hosts special events such as concerts, festivals, weddings, corporate events, and of course, paranormal investigations. The first time I was here, I witnessed my first full-body apparition. It was noon, broad daylight. No kidding. I was looking down the breezeway and I watched a man walk from the left to right and disappeared. My friend said, "You look like you saw a ghost." And I said, "I think I just did." It was a middle-aged white male with brown hair, bowl haircut, wearing a navy blue plain t-shirt with blue jean shorts. It was the craziest thing ever. Obviously, it was not a former worker of the furnace operation, so I'm at a loss how this gentleman was related to the site or where he was going. I will play a couple EVPs I captured while at Sloss. The first one is silly. I was talking to my friend Scott. I think it's something like "Go snuggle with Daddy" or "Give sugar to Daddy." Let me know what you think it says. It was very odd. We were in the tunnel with other investigators at the time. So have a listen and tell me what you think.
No.
We spent like an hour starting to learn the sound.
Ghost hunting for daddies?
Another time I visited, I was teasing my friend, and it sounds like a small boy saying, "Let me through." At one time, families did live in the company housing near the site and in the surrounding neighborhoods. Maybe this was one of the former workers' children. I thought it was a cool capture. Take a listen and let me know what you think.
How's that? What? How's that? Said make it snappy.
A visit to Sloss never disappoints. It's free to tour during the daytime, but special events may have a cost associated with them. Follow all their socials before you go and check out their museum as well. We have finally reached number 1. This place has a special place in my heart. It is the reason I started investigating the paranormal. Years ago, I had a friend whose husband was always watching the ghost hunting shows on TV. When I came over, I sat there and we watched, and I said, "We are too logical for this. It has to be fake." Fast forward, we decided to book a notoriously haunted hotel, the 1886 Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. I encountered my first black shadow figure here. We were in the hallway around 11 p.m. being ghost hunters. My friend's husband was on one end of the hallway, I was in the middle, and my friend was on the right of me, on the other end of the hallway. I looked up and noticed a black shadow figure on the landing, with his hands resting on the banister as if he was looking over and admiring his work. If he had actual eyes, we would have locked eyes, and then poof, suddenly he turned to his right to run off, and then he dissipated into thin air, like a cloud of smoke. My brain could not comprehend what I just witnessed. I thought if I tell my friend she is going to make us leave tonight, right now, and the drive 4.5 hours home, so I waited to tell them at breakfast. In all honesty, I think I encountered the spirit they call Michael. It is a man that worked at the hotel when it was being built and apparently fell off a scaffolding to his death. It would explain why he was looking over what he might have worked on and was admiring his work. We were in this room. I was having a tarot card reading because I thought it would be fun and caught an EVP that says, "Is she the one? I'm not the one. My daughter's not the one." We have no idea what the female spirit was referring to. Have a listen and tell me what you think. After she says, "Is she the one?" it sounds like a little kid says, "No, she's not." Another time I went back and took my daughter for the paranormal weekend when she was a teenager. Lots of cool experiences. If you go to the Crescent during the paranormal weekends, normally the most haunted rooms are open 24 hours a day. They're not rented, so you can come and go as you please and investigate, take pictures, look around. So it's pretty cool. Usually it's held in January of every year. I was trying to play ball in the hallway with a boy spirit who they call Brecky, and he said hi. Let me know if you hear it. I'm doing the ball. The Crescent Hotel is said to be haunted because of its eerie past as a hospital run by Norman Baker in the 1930s. Baker, a con man claiming to cure cancer, performed fake treatments on desperate patients, many of whom died in the building. Before and after that period, the hotel also saw accidental deaths during its construction and throughout its long history. Today, guests and staff report ghostly figures, flickering lights, and unexplained noises, especially in room 218 and the old morgue, earning the Crescent its title as America's Most Haunted Hotel. There were too many experiences at the Crescent to mention them all. Such a great town. I love Eureka Springs. Tell me in the comments if you've ever been to Eureka Springs and if you've ever been to the Crescent. I hope you enjoyed my top 10 favorite haunted places I've been to over the years. I hope to go to many more new locations, so please subscribe to follow along on my future investigations. Happy haunting. Until next time. Bye for now.